barrel roll.
Welcome to the podcast where we discuss how to outmaneuver your opponents. I'm Faith, and I'm here with Jrod and his Dudeness. We are back from our pre-releases with insights into Jump to Lightspeed. We also talk about improved tournament rules and Twin Suns. Jrod, how was your experience at your pre-release for Jump to Lightspeed?
A lot of fun. Super excited to try all the new mechanics that we had. This has definitely been one of the most different pre-releases, just mechanical-wise for sets. Like the pilot mechanic has been very interesting and very dynamic within this format here for pre-release. So a lot of fun to test it out. My one concern was that Vader being a common led a lot of people to like him and Luke just being like some of the best two leaders you could play. And like I think I went to one where it was only like 5 people. It was a very small one. 4 people, I ended up choosing not to play Vader, but I probably should have. 3 others were Vader and 1 was Luke. So literally everyone basically should have been playing Vader. I ended up playing Vorn Reg, whatever his name is, just to try him out. I wanted to try him out. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. Super cool. Would have liked to have tried Poe, but didn't get that opportunity. I think I played Wedge in my first one that I ended up going undefeated. And then I went 2-1 with Major Vorn Reg and / Boba Fett. I tried both of them.
And Dudeness, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was able to go to one pre-release. And in the very first pack I opened in the pre-release kit, I get a Hyperspace Devastator. So I'm like, all right, pretty good start to set 4. Can't really complain.
Nope.
But I end up making a yellow Wedge deck because I get a couple of the 1-drop Y-Wings. I had a bunch of low-cost pilots, like 2 clone pilots and a bunch of other rando unique pilots. I was just trying to go all space, all pilots all the time. I will say I ended up going 2-1 on that particular pre-release, losing to a Luke deck. And this particular Luke deck was using what they're called the Cloaked Star Vipers, the 4-cost neutral blue, the 3/2 with 2 shields. And in our tier list, I gave that a filler rating. I would like to bump that up to a good, because that card is good with all the pilots and upgrades that are around. If you can't deal with those shields, you just get ridiculous amount of value. It was like my game was going good, and he put that down, put some pilot on it, and then it's just like, oh, I just lose from here. It felt pretty bad. Mostly, if you can get a pilot on it, those 2 shields are doing an insane amount of work.
And how did Little Dudeness do?
He ended up going 3-0, actually.
What did he
playing
play?
The new Boba. Yeah, he kind of crushed it. His pre-release kit was pretty subpar. My pre-release kit was kind of banging. I had the Hyperspace Devastator, Hyperspace Home 1, which was in the Wedge deck, but I never got to play. It's kind of hard to play, honestly. A Hyperspace Foil Chewbacca, which I thought was a pretty cool pull. That was like a pretty nice start to, like I said, set 4.
I have clearly fallen off of my Star Wars game. I went 2-2 my first pre-release. I went 1-1 my second pre-release, and I went 1-2 my third pre-release. So a little disappointed overall with my results. I want to shout out Gundy she beat me both on Friday and on Sunday. So he played really well, and I was definitely happy to verse him, and I'm hoping to get him back on next time. But I played in the first one, I played a red wedge deck. And in my second event, I played a green Luke deck. And in my third event, I played a red Han deck. The Han is definitely an interesting leader to play in limited because he requires odd cost cards. And it was definitely a little bit of a challenge. But I had fun with him, and I think why I wanted to play him was because I saw a lot of people play Luke, and I saw a lot of people play Vader in my first 2 events, and I had a deck that I could have played Luke in, but I was like, well, I want to try Han, because this is like the one time I'm going to get to play him in this kind of environment, so I thought it was a fun deck. I definitely hardcore misplayed. I had the K-turn in my hand, which is a 3-cost card. It lets you ready a fighter or transport with 6 or less power. And I put Han onto a ship with 3 power. And Han, as a pilot, gives your thing 3 power. So 3 power on my ship, 3 power on Han is 6, which is enough to K-turn. However, I had Tarkin on my ground, which gives my unit +1. And I didn't do that math properly. I was playing pretty aggressively, and I was like, okay, this is going to work out. And I just I was just about to play the K-turn, and I'm like, oh, now he has 7 power. And I can't ready him. So I would have won without that probably. And then I didn't. And there was another time I could have used because I had Tarkin on the board, giving my vehicles +1 and overwhelm. I forgot about it. And so I just totally screwed the pooch with that game. In the first game that I ran, I had two of those 3-1 red pilots that cost two, and I used those in kind of a funny way. Cards like Leia and cards like the green ship that costs four that's reduced by pilots. Both those cards work when just regardless of the number of pilots you have. They don't have to be pilots that are actually piloting a ship. And
Right.
so with these 3-1 pilots, I would put them on the ground and then either use on turn two, play Leia and get to swing for four with them on the ground pushing because they're a pilot unit, or hopefully turn two, play the three green four ship. Is it red five? Whatever one.
Red leader, I think it is.
Is it red leader? Sorry, red leader. Yeah. So then as well, he also discounts based off of having the 3-1 unit on the ground. So that was kind of the fun interaction I did in on my Friday event. And then on my middle event there, I was playing Luke, and Luke is fun. I think Luke's a really good hero. As Jrod mentioned, I think that's funny how Luke and Vader have some interplay, with one making 1/1 tokens and the other one dealing one damage. So like in set one with the shields and the damage, they had a way for them to interact and play off of each other. Now, there's been some discussion I heard about banning a leader. So I heard of some groups banning Anakin from set 3 limited in their own internal play groups because they found it was less fun. We all kind of experienced a lot of Luke or Vader. Do you think that any of these leaders rise to that level that you would consider ban one of the leaders?
I would say it's tough to ban too many of the common ones because those are the ones that are designed to be, well, common for the draft. But like, I personally think that if you see Vader and your green villainy is good enough, is fine, or you have enough in green to play him, then you probably more than often should be playing him. Unless you have just some like ridiculously bonkers stuff in another color, like you should just play it. Luke is a little bit different because sometimes like you not only need to have enough red, you also need to have enough fighters to make him good. So if you don't have enough of both of those, he can be less impactful.
Yeah, I don't think you need to ban anything. And like if everyone's trying to play Luke, then everyone's drafting all the fighters anyways.
Draft is different than I'm talking limited here, where like draft, obviously, yes, like there's only going to be so many of these cards to go around, so it's going to be a little bit different. But for sealed, I think Vader, if you're going to do like sealed events, whatever, but draft, sure. Like I would still say Vader probably should be banned in draft to make it more open and interesting. Just because like he doesn't need any particular ships. It's just if a ship attacked or a vehicle, I should say. So it doesn't even have to be a ship. It could be a ground vehicle too.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that I didn't really think about that with Darth Vader. I was always in my conceptual only counting my space units. But yes, it looks like ground vehicles also trigger him. Dudeness, I know you especially had a lot of concern for the pilot mechanic on leaders. Now limited is different than constructed, where we're going to see more kinds of removal for these leaders. How did you find the piloting on leaders, at least in limited?
I thought it was pretty good for the most part, actually. Like it feels pretty good to deploy your leader onto the ship and be able to attack with it and do a thing. Obviously, some leaders are better than others, but I mean, just getting Vader out on a 1/1 TIE fighter to make him a 6/6 and get two more TIE fighters, like, definitely feels good. Luke feels good, obviously. Haven't really had a chance to play, which I did actually we played some extra sealed with, like, a booster box that we got. I made a Von Reg deck, and I didn't care for Von Reg. His front side ability seems kinda, in the word,
Yeah,
booty cheeks.
but I think Boba Fett's just better than him. So if you're playing like if you're doing your pre-release, I would have just played Boba Fett after trying
Yeah,
both of
I
them.
mean, that was the kinda thing where I just kinda wanted to try out this Von Reg guy, just to try him out kind of thing.
Mhm.
And, like, yeah, he didn't feel very good, but, I mean, the piloting mechanic is neat. I still just wish they deployed into their own spaceship, but, maybe later.
Yeah, I don't think that that's ever out of the question. It doesn't seem like, and well, it might not be preference, and it might not be for a while. I could see a world where we maybe have that. There's definitely space for that, at least. Space, because it's a space arena.
Oh, this guy stinks.
Jared, what about yourself? How did you find piloting as a mechanic, as a leader, for a leader?
Honestly, I hated it. I almost lost the game. Luckily, we're doing best two out of three for this pre-release, but which was very weird. I was against it, but everyone else wanted it, so I was like, all right, whatever. More games is fine. Doing best two out of three, and the only game that I lost all day this was when I went undefeated, and I was playing Wedge Antilles, and I was like super ahead in the race, feeling really good about life, and my opponent attacks me with a ground unit, a 6 attack, 5 cost ground unit, I'm like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Oh, yeah, when I attack, I'm gonna defeat an upgrade, so I'll kill Wedge." And I was like, "Huh." I had to read the card, and I was, like, thinking, I'm like, "Oh, nope, it definitely does that, so, I guess I lose." And, that didn't feel great. You get to deploy your leader, and they get to just defeat it with an on attack and hit you for 6. It just didn't feel good, and that was in limiteds, which, like, obviously removal is even harder to come by, so I don't know. Like, that to me just kind of puts a big hole in piloting. Like, I thought there would be more ways to get around it or, like, more benefits, but, like, sometimes, like, a lot of times I feel like you're playing a ship and then deploying your leader onto the ship that's, like, already exhausted, and it's just not good. Like, if you're not getting to able to, like, attack with the unit, like, I don't know, it's like when you go to your leader flip turn for piloting, you might have, like, 1 ship ready, if you're lucky, 2. I think that's why Vader's so good is because like, he just makes a bunch of little things, so you're always gonna have a couple of things ready, so you can always deploy him and hit for 6 at minimum. But, like, other leaders that don't make their own ships, like, it's the game is still set up right now to go 1 for 1 with every single ship that your opponent deploys, so, like, who cares? Like, you're literally gonna deploy onto a exhausted spaceship, sick. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's not where I'd wanna be for the base mechanic for a set.
Yeah, so there's definitely two any mechanic you have to look at it in two ways. One, how does it do in limited? Two, how does it do in constructed? In the testing that I've seen for constructed, I'm seeing a lot of bamboozles because for those that don't know, when you play bamboozle, which you can either pay for casting two in cunning heroism, or you can just play for free by discarding a cunning card. You tap a unit and you return all upgrades to their owner's hand. And that includes pilot leaders, which is a feel bad for sure. So if you even if you have your unit ready as your action, you deploy your leader as a pilot, and then bam, they bamboozle it, and it's gone, and that's epic action gone forever. So that's super sad. Plus, there's also confiscate. Now, confiscate won't work on Luke because Luke says it can't be destroyed, and you also have things like disabling Fangor or things like aggression. So these card stocks are all seeming to go up and definitely make it harder to justify wanting to use pilot leader.
Yeah,
In
and
in limited though, it is interesting. There wasn't like confiscate wasn't one of the reprints. Fang Fighter wasn't one of the reprints. We didn't there wasn't many leader upgrade removal except for the unit that Jrod talked about, the
which
unconditional.
which to be fair, that unit does cost 6.
Yes, and there's not a lot of ramp in the set. I think
No, the
resupply.
only ramp is on a 6 cost card.
Mhm.
no, it was a 4
So
cost 1 technically. The red
oh, I
one
guess
said
Cham
if
ramp
you have
2,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
like,
sure,
it's
sure.
not
which doesn't
in
actually
limited,
ramp
yeah.
you, it just evens you with your opponent,
Mhm. And if they're
which
not ramping, then it doesn't
and
really
yeah,
do
it's the
anything.
same difference. You if anything, really, if they go to 5, you stay at 4, you play Cham, and you just get a free resource off the top.
Yeah.
Not really
So
ramping, though, you're just getting free value.
so that's, those were some interesting things that I definitely felt like I playing this limited environment, I was a little surprised with, again, the lack of ramp and the upgrade removal slash piloting, but then thinking about that long term. And I'm also interested in like a chaos draft or a multi-pack draft where you're using packs from different sets, how these pilot leaders would definitely their value could go down when you do get removal, upgrade removal, particularly in red, that would be able to target those leaders really easily and effectively.
One thing I noticed with my limited plays is that ground is the new space for this set's
Hmm.
draft, right? Like, having some nice ground units to be able to pivot and just play over there and like I lost to a Cham on the ground a couple times just because like, man, he's dealing 5 damage each time, and I can't deal with that. I guess I just lose, right?
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah.
with that in mind, I was kind of playing some of my pilots to the ground simply because they kinda were able to put more pressure on the ground and less susceptible to 2 for winning yourself.
That's why that 3/5 for 4, I think it is a sentinel in the ground. I thought was really strong because it
Blue
did
one.
yeah, shore up that lane. And because this set, like, yes, I would agree that ground was the new space. However, space units are always slightly worse. And so with the space arena or whatever, the less popular arena was now also the stronger base stat arena. So if you were able to get an empty lane, you can do a lot of damage that way.
Yeah, I actually think the card where it's if you control the space unit, it gets Sentinel the 2/1 for 1. I think that card was, like, pretty key too because, you could just in the actions of going back and forth, like, they're swinging, right, and they have a big guy they're ready to swing with, like, "Oh, man, I can't take that hit," so you get to play this 1 cost little Sentinel boy, let them bash the big guy into that, and then you get to keep racing on the other side. I think, like, those things, and there's also the same thing with the 2 cost 2/1 shipped in green as well. Like, green had 2 cheap Sentinels that you could just mess up the math out of nowhere.
Yeah, if you want, you can check out our common tier list and uncommon discussion where we rank that ground unit as a fringe unit. So thanks, Jrod, for showing us that we're wrong.
It's
Um,
only because you guys didn't invite me to that video.
so I did want to. The two other highlights that I forgot to mention was in my first round, in my first day, I did play Thermo Thermothumping Oscillator, one that lets you have 5 less cards in your deck. That was kind of funny in limited. The 27, it actually like didn't matter that I had a lower deck because there wasn't a ton of like inherent mill in this set, so I really didn't get punished for it, and I was playing an aggressive deck, so it wasn't a problem. It was fun to play with less cards and make my deck more efficient. I did get like all the games ended I think by turn 6, and the highlight from the second tournament I was in was my opponent had 2 damage on their base on turn 5, and by the end of that turn, I ended up having them at 26 damage on their base because I played the turn before I played the when it enters play, deal a damage to a unit equal to the number of space units you have, and that's a resistance unit, a resistance fighter. And so I deployed Luke onto that unit, attacked with my other things, and then I played a BB-8 on one of my units, and BB-8 lets you untap a resistance unit, and so I was able to untap that ship with Luke on it and get a second attack with Luke, which was really strong.
Pretty nice.
Definitely sounds good.
And so that was our experience of our pre-release with Jump to Lightspeed. Overall, how would you guys now rank the 4 limited experiences for you guys? So Spark, Shadows, Twilight, Jump to Lightspeed.
For me, it was definitely Spark was number 1 because it was number 1. I will probably never be as hyped for Star Wars Unlimited set as I was for that set. So 1 was definitely the best and probably won't ever change. I would say 3 was my second favorite. This one was my third, and then Shadows was probably last.
I don't know. I really enjoyed this set, so I'd almost put it number 1, and then Spirit number 2, and then set 3 number 3, followed by the Shadows at the number 4, I guess.
I think I would agree with you guys. Shadows number 4. I would agree with Jrod. Spark would be number 1 for me. So it's between Twilight and Jump to Lightspeed for 3, or for ranking 2 or ranking 3. I think for me, Twilight was 2 and this was 3. Not this was a bad set. It might have just been because I'm bad at the game now, and that probably was why. And now that we're kind of putting a close to the pre-release time from Jump to Lightspeed, I know you guys had opened some product from Jump to Lightspeed. Any notable pulls that you guys want to talk about?
I guess I'll go first. I opened up 2 Carbonite boxes and was very fortunate in those. I ended up pulling 2 showcases out of those 2 boxes. I got a Captain Phasma and a Rose Tico. But while they weren't the most banger showcases, they were still showcases. And as I always say, the best thing to be able to trade for other showcases is to open other showcases. So I got some trade fodder to get some ones that I want. And the big money, I did hit a serialized IG-2000. I currently own 109 out of 250. I will probably be looking to sell that at some point, but currently on the marketplace, you can pretty much get them for like $500, and I do not feel like selling mine for that cheap. These cards, they are 1 in 4 Carbonite boxes, which retail for about $250 to $300 in that ballpark range. So that means on average to get one, it'll cost you about $1,000, which is what I'd be looking for to get to sell my IG-2000. Otherwise, I'll hold on to it. And I would recommend others to be more patient with those because people are comparing them to showcases, which every single showcase, no matter what it is going to get reprinted out to wazoo, and they will keep coming out. These serialized cards, there will only be 250 in the world. And let me repeat that, 250 in the world. So for us United States folks that believe that we are the world, we are not. We are not even half of the world. So please understand that Europe and everyone else over there, and Asia and everyone else that's getting this stuff. There's only 250 in the entire world. Where showcases, there's thousands of them. So understanding how much more rare these cards are, please do not go rush out and sell these things for like $300, $400, $500. As close to 1,000 as you can possibly get is where you should be for these things. And I am fairly certain on that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident $1,000 is what these will be going for the rest of the remaining time that we have serialized cards to 250.
And just for those that maybe don't know, Carbonite boosters are only available, or at least serialized cards are only available in English. And so you will, well, when he's saying 250 in the world, there's not like a separate French version, separate German version, though the game is printed in those languages. The serialized cards are only in English.
Yeah. There's only 250 and they're not getting reprinted, so there won't be more. So understand that as this game grows and gets better, people will want these cards, and IG-2000 is going to be a very meta card. And as such, I'm holding on to it until we start seeing results and people go, oh, that card's really good and I want a serialized card. Then I will start selling that.
What about yourself, Dudeness? Any exciting pulls from your side?
I didn't really open up much outside my pre-release kit. So the Hyperspace, Devastator, and Hyperfoil Chewy were like the two closest things I got. But my
What about
brother did get a random booster box, just a regular booster box. He ended up pulling a showcase wedge, which is the first showcase he's ever opened so far out of all these sets. He was pretty stoked on that to finally get one. And in that same pack was actually a regular Devastator. So like that particular pack was pretty sweet.
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome? Are you guys going to be building a wedge deck?
He's been trying out wedge a little bit, but the one that he was messing around with was like, yeah, it's like he's like wedge is fine, I guess, kind of a thing.
Which color was he playing with?
That's a good question that I can't answer. I was going to assume red though.
Ooh, I like yellow because being able to play a Falcon readied is always a nice need be if you need to play your leader attack on the same turn. All right, and now we're going to transition to talking about some tournament rules and some tiny changes they've made into tournaments. So, Jrod, as our rule expert of the podcast, would you mind
Oh boy.
discussing some of the changes that they've made?
I admittedly didn't do much research on these, but I'll give you what I know. So they added intentional draws, which is pretty big in my opinion. At the end or towards the end of Swiss rounds to get to top 8, it would get to a point where you could double draw into the top 8 and basically be guaranteed a spot in Magic events and other tournament events as well. Star Wars Unlimited tried to go a different route and tried to avoid people being able to double draw into these events. But the reason they're able to double draw is because they go undefeated, and then it doesn't matter if they like win or lose as long as they kind of just like win one, lose one, they're automatically in the top 8. So then both of them just double draw, and it's basically like they won one and lost one. They move on, and kind of lets them take a little break and reset for top 8. So it's a nice little reward for doing well in Swiss. So SWU didn't have that. They've now implemented that in, and I think it's good. They are not allowing people after playing a single game in the match to then ID the rest of the way. You have to play it out after that, which I also appreciate because there were some instances where people would like flow play and like both of them would kind of like play but not really play, hoping to see the completion of a different match and how the outcome of that match would come, and then based on who won or lost would determine if they could just draw and then be in the top 8 for both of them. So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. Makes people have to just play it out and not sit there and like wait to see who wins. So that's good. So IDs are good. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Yeah, to further clarify, it says as soon as players draw their opening hands, the match must proceed normally.
Mm-hmm. And so basically how they changed this rule is now a win is 3 points, the draws are 1 point, and a loss is 0. And honestly, the old rules where we had the double loss, the big problem with that is that because the tiebreaker was determined by your opponent's match win percentage, when both players would lose and they get a double loss, it would hurt you more than just giving your opponent the win. Like it was actually like correct if you guys were going to double lose for someone to be like, you get the win. Because what happens is that then your opponent gets a loss and you get a loss. So you are in a losing bracket, and then your opponent also lost. So now your opponent's match win percentage was hurt. So that means your percentage, like where you rank, is always going to be at the bottom of whatever. So let's say it was X and 2 to get into the top 8. If you had a double loss, you were never making top 8 ever, period, full stop. Because you were going to be at the bottom of the bracket because your opponent had an extra loss, basically. Unless you face like everyone else who made top 8 somehow, and like, which is like almost impossible for it to happen. So like, basically, if you got a double loss, you were just basically excluded from top 8 unless that was like your only loss in the day, more or less. So it's kind of crappy, and it definitely disincentivizes people playing control. So I'm glad they made this change. I think it's going to be good overall. Yeah. So
Yeah. So and then yeah, just a reminder, as Jrod said, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, whether that's an intentional draw or if the game ends in a draw, and then 0 points for a loss. Yes. So that is our new tournament rules. There was a little bit different, a little bit change as well in how drafting should be done. And I'm now going to turn to our draft expert, Dudeness. If you can just quickly go over how they clarified drafting should work, so the proper etiquette of drafting.
Yeah, they instituted what they call a 3-zone system, and that only one pack of cards should ever be in each of these zones. And they define these zones as the first zone is cards in your hand, second zone is cards that you are passing to the next player, and the third zone is the cards that are being passed to you. So don't if you keep getting like ahead of the rest of the drafters, don't just keep passing your packs to the guy next to you. Wait until they're done drafting or picking up the pack that you had passed previously, so they don't somehow miss up cards. And they're trying to get players to be mindful of how many cards are in each pack, because I mean I've had it in my own local drafts where somebody inevitably like doesn't get a card or something, and now there's uneven packs, and we get uneven cards at the end, and it's just like it's kind of hard to like go back and rewind that. You just kind of have to go forward and eat it. So we're trying to clean it up and make it a lot more defined.
Thank you for clarifying that for us. Before we turn on to Twin Suns, what would your guys' combination be? What do you think the best limited environment would be? And that would be you could choose multiple different packs from different sets or all in one set. I think for me, I would want one set 1, one set 3, one set 4.
I think right now I prefer all of just of the same set. Right now, kind of set 4 because that's what's new and that's what I want to play.
And J-Rod?
One set 1, one set 4, and then I'd like to go to the third and final one. I think I'd like to do another set 1. I'd
Okay.
like to try that. I think that would be interesting. The set 4 one being in there makes it really interesting and allows a bit more balance of a set, because set 1 was definitely very ground heavy, and then set 4 is very space heavy. So I think it would offer a good mix of like you having to be balanced across both. And it has set 1 being very basic and fundamental, I think would allow set 4 stuff to really shine. Whereas like if you had like set 2 or set 3, those were very like specific. Although set 3 also probably could work pretty well with set 4 because there are a lot of tokens as well. So the coordinate action and that kind of stuff could also do well. But I also could see you ending with a set 3 and being a pretty good fun format.
That's awesome. Now we're going to turn our attention to Twin Suns, everyone's new favorite format. Dudeness, can you explain what set 4 means for Twin Suns?
Well, it means the biggest thing Twin Suns has experienced thus far, and that's increasing the deck size from 50 to 80 cards. That's an over 50% increase. I mean, going from 50 to 80, I mean, that's a lot of extra cards that are in your deck now. And it's kind of crazy because, like, you compare it to, Commander, Magic's format, they're running like 33 lands usually, sometimes less, but 33-ish is usually about the mark. So they're only running like 73 actual cards, different cards in their deck.
Hmm.
So we're actually running more unique cards in our deck, if you don't count lands, than even Magic is. So, like, I haven't had a chance to play Twin Suns yet with the new 80 cards. I am actually kind of stoked to see how it goes. I'm a little intimidated in trying to build an 80 card deck because you have to do only one a copy, right? So
I'll help you out with that. As someone who literally built 2 today as we were recording this, which is Saturday 3:15, and is currently, while we've been doing the podcast, making another one. Basically what I do, like I go through and pick my 2 leaders. Like currently I'm making the Mandalorian and Poe Dameron. I think that combo is pretty cool because you can deploy Poe, and I'm pretty sure it counts as you playing an upgrade. Maybe it doesn't because you're using this action. Maybe it's not as cool as I thought it was going to be. It's actually not, but it's okay. So what I do, I put 2 leaders. So I'll use Django and Boba Fett from set 4 as the deck I built today. And I went through and I just put in all the cards. I was like, does this card seem good for this deck? Yes or no? Yes, in, no, move on. I went through the whole thing. And then at the end, I ended up with typically about 105 cards that I would want to play with. And then I sat there and I just tried to think about what cards can I cut? Because there's a ton of good cards out there right now. And I promise you, cutting it down to 80 was not easy. Making some tough cuts there at the end, but you got to do what you got to do to get it down to 80 so you can be efficient with it. That's how I would go about building my Twin Suns deck for 80 cards. Just don't worry about the limit yet. Just put all the cards in you want, and I would be shocked if you end up shorter than 80. I would be shocked.
Here's a question: how many cards that cost 7 or more are in your 80 card list?
Let's see. I could tell you right now. Let me pull up my. You want talking about my
The
Boba
Django.
Fett list?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
I mean, I assume you have, like, a Devastator and stuff. You have,
One,
like,
two, three,
3
four,
cards
five.
that cost more than 7?
I have 5 on the ground, which is Cad Bane, Darth Vader, and Maul, Palpatine, and Crate Dragon, just because they're just good units. And then I have, you said more than 7 for
Yeah.
this? I have Devastator the 8 cost and Devastator the 10 cost, and that's it, 2. And I got Choose Sides as well, mixed in there.
That's still my only real criticism of the format is that late game just is kind of irrelevant.
I will say I played 5 games today. I cast Devastator in 2 of them, the 10 cost Devastator, and then someone cast an 8 cost Devastator, which, by the way, says 4 indirect damage to each opponent, by the way.
Oh,
Mhm.
does it?
Yeah, I didn't know that, and someone
That's
said that,
amazing.
and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So
Say
you just get the
what?
yeah, what? And he had the thing that makes it do 1 more, so it did 5 to each opponent, and I was like, "Oh, boy."
New
So,
target acquired.
yeah, dude, so Devastator is pretty banana lands. The red Devastator, 8 cost Devastator is pretty banana lands in Twin Suns action, so, card was definitely designed with Twin Suns in mind with that wording, because they could've just said 4 indirect to an opponent, but this is each, so it was definitely taking Twin Suns into account with that, so I did not win that game. Neither did that person, which is kinda wild, but yeah. So,
So,
yeah, I mean,
Dudeness, you said you don't have a deck, Dudeness. What would your leader choice in your
that's
first
probably a better
instinct?
question. You should already be able to guess it, Faith. I'm gonna give you 1 guess. If you get it wrong, you're off the podcast. Go.
Leia.
No, wrong.
That's a good choice, but I mean, I thinking about doing a Sabine and Kaz
Yeah.
Yeah.
2, 4
to
cost. Come
to
on.
punish the rest of the table, right?
Yeah, Sabine and Kaz would be pretty punchy. I guess that's where it does depend on your group. Like in any kind of Twin Suns thing, you are playing to your group. So if you have a group that everyone's playing Sabine, that game is not going to get to turn 7. However, if everyone else is playing later game stuff, then you're definitely going to be playing the 10
Yeah, that's
costs.
fair. That's fair.
It's
I
when you mix
happened
it in that's interesting.
I was watching the Garbage Rollers gameplay today. Shout out to the Garbage Rollers. And Justin was playing Kaz versus this is not Twin Suns real quick, but he was playing Kaz versus I think it was like Pia or something like that. I forget what it was. Oh no, it was Han 2, the red Han from set 2, green, and Justin was playing Kaz, and he went turn 2, play Millennium Falcon, or no, it was turn 3, play Millennium Falcon, deploy Kaz onto it, and then Trench Run hit you for 10. When my board was empty that turn, he had nothing on the board. Just take 10. That's insane.
Did
Now,
you say you
granted,
played him on Falcon?
he played him on Falcon and
That one
then
talking to me.
Trench Run. Set
But
one Falcon.
Trench Run is only for fighters.
Oh yeah, someone's mentioned it.
Oh, Justin, you broke the rules.
But if you are looking for some great Twin Suns content, you can check out Bucketheads, who we had different Justin on, and
Juicy.
they do some great content. So their tech has definitely improved. Their quality is the best in the business. So check out Bucketheads. Their Open Fire series on Twin Suns is amazing.
Yeah,
They
they just
just released.
released the first episode of the new season last night as of this recording, and I highly suggest you guys check it out. They do a whole bounty hunter theme. It's pretty cool.
I was watching that while building my Twin Suns deck today. and it was a great way to spend my afternoon before heading to the store and playing some Twin Suns. It was just a Twin Suns filled day for your boy, and I loved every second of it. I want to play more Twin Suns. I'm glad I'm able to hop on a pod and talk about Twin Suns, because if you're not playing Twin Suns, what are you doing? I'm a competitive Andy, and I am telling you to try Twin Suns. It's the coolest format. It's so much fun. You can be competitive with it and still just have fun and be casual and like hang out, and it's the most fun that I've had playing Star Wars Unlimited. You get to play with a bigger group, and it's just a lot of fun, a lot of different like negotiating and making deals with people, because guess what? In Twin Suns, you can't win by yourself. You have to get a little help from somebody else at some point in time. And that's what I love about it. So definitely, if you've considered or if you think about dabbling, please check it out. Please just try it. Get some friends together, build some decks, have a blast. I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
Now, for those that maybe this is their first TCG, welcome to Star Wars Unlimited. Welcome to the trading card world. Twin Suns is an awesome format. However, Star Wars Limited and FFG aren't the first to come up with this kind of multiplayer format. It definitely is a great tip of the hat to Wizards of the Coast with Magic the Gathering, which is the first kind of TCG, and their fan created format. It's Commander now, but why am I
Elder Dragon
Elder
Highlander.
Dragon
Elder
Highlander.
Dragon Highlander? Thank you. The original, I started playing EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, but now it's called Commander. And the reason I want to bring that up is Commander did something recent new, and Dudeness is going to tell us about it and his thought on whether Star Wars should implement some of those things.
So more or less, they instituted a bracket system to where you can put whatever commander deck you have inside one of these brackets, ranging from 1 to 5, 1 being super casual, and 5 being the most hyper competitive that you can have. And this is an easy way for everyone to come to the table and say, hey, I am using a bracket 3 deck. We should all try to match the power level, so there's no, pub stomping, as it were, right? Now, it has gotten met with some mixed reception within the Magic community, right? Like, it's kind of a meme sort of at this point, but I think it's an interesting idea, so that there's no like rule zero discussion, right? It's just, hey, what bracket level is your deck? We go from there. Whether or not it should be instituted into Star Wars, I don't think at this point, no, it should be. But I mean, if we get 20 years down the line, right, and there's just ridiculous amounts of cards, I could definitely see it being necessary.
So I think like what you mentioned there, there's this idea of a turn zero conversation. Unlike and you can do this in a 1v1 game where you say, hey, are you playing a competitive deck or a casual deck? Because if I come with my Hera deck that I'm just there to have fun with, and my opponent has this super tuned Tarkentown Django deck, like we might both be playing the game for different reasons, and that's okay. Like I think people are going to play a card game for a variety of reasons. Some people want to win at all costs. Some people want to just go do and have some fun things. And having both of you having the same intention going into that is, I think, a really important thing. So everyone has the most amount of fun. This in a format like Twin Suns, especially, this can kind of cause a disparity if one person has a different mindset than everyone else. And that's where these brackets can be a good thing going forward. So everyone's on the same understanding of what the game's going to be. And how Magic's works, their bracket system is your deck is the bracket it's in is determined by the cards that are inside of it. So if you have a really awesome card, let's take Cunning as an example. Cunning might be such a strong card that makes your deck a bracket 4 deck by just having that card in your deck. And so other decks that don't have Cunning are a bracket 1 or a bracket 2 deck. So just something to consider that Magic's doing and thinking about how that can apply to Star Wars. Jrod, any of your thoughts from you on that?
I mean, I'm on with Dudeness. I think it's too early right now. I've definitely played a decent amount, and I've played different type of leaders and seen some people who don't have as big collections as I do play and do well in Twin Suns, even though they don't have all these like super priced legendaries. That's the cool thing about Twin Suns is that they're all one of. So even if you have an $80 card in your deck because it's super powerful, you might not even see it in that specific game. So And like the thing with Magic too is like when they have lands in there, a lot of the decks like ramp out lands, so you get to pull cards from your deck and thin it out, so you're getting more to your like better cards per se. And they have a lot of card draw and stuff like that. Where like in this game doesn't really have that, so I don't think it's needed right now with the current state of what things are, and we just kind of expanded into 80. I think people should just build their fun stuff and see what kind of cool things they can do together, and have fun with it.
I think with Magic as well, it's the higher brackets are like infinite combos and kind of unfun play experiences, like taking multiple turns. We don't really have that yet in Star Wars, so yeah, I would agree that I don't think we need the bracket system yet. Ultimately, I think it's all about having fun, and I think Twin Suns, while it can be exciting and maybe a little sweaty, it is a casual format at heart, and so I think it's as long as people aren't doing kind of unfun things, I think anything definitely goes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like for example, today's a perfect example. I sat down at the table. I had played with one person before, but other people I hadn't played Twin Suns with. I played Premier with a couple of them, but not, or like even like Pre-Release we played together. I hadn't played Twin Suns, and I sat down and they brought some friendly grudge to the first match, and they were just hitting each other back and forth, no matter if it made sense or not. Like that was just they came in like that they were gonna just demolish each other, and then me and the other person were just gonna kind of hang out. And I quickly won that game because of that, because they kind of ignored me, and I came out of nowhere with the quick way to end the game. Then we played another game right after, and then I quickly was defeated because I won the other game, and they were like, "Well, you're not going to win this game." So they put their little beef to the side, and they basically both targeted me, and then I was unable to win the game. And that's Twin Suns, man. Like that's just how it rolls. And you know what? I laughed it off, and I said, "Okay, so now now I'm gonna make sure you two don't win. So I'm gonna hit your bases and not make optimal plays and just have fun with it." And then the other person to my left ended up winning the last. It was a good time. That's kind of Twin Suns in a nutshell, man. Like, you got to play a politics. You can't be making people mad. Like one of the dudes just kept taking the blast token first every single time. It's like, great. Then everyone took a turn, their first action to hit his base and was like, hey, you're going to blast me. We're going to blast you back for more. And then he stopped taking the blast counter and he's like, what does this blue one do? We're like, oh, the plan counter, you know? And then he never took the blast ever again after that. He learned his lesson. So then it became this like, oh, I guess I have to take the blast counter now because no one wanted to take it because everyone was just hitting the person that took it. But obviously at some point someone has to take it. So it's like, folks, I'm just taking it because I have to. I have no other choice here. So like, please don't be mean to me, kind of playing that game. So it was a good time.
That's great. Dudeness, any final thoughts from you?
I just want to know when we're going to be renaming our podcast to the Twin Suns podcast.
You can expect that coming up soon, probably. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this episode of Outmaneuver. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Cheers, guys.
Later, y'all.